7:39. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Morning to you.
Let's have a look at all the news stories and people making headlines this morning in the papers and online. Joining us this morning, GBNEWS' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and writer and commentator Candice Holdsworth. And a very good morning to you again.
Hello.
Right. Right, what are we looking at first? Madeleine McCann.
Yeah, what's happening with this?
Well, yes, who's doing this for us? Is it Candice, you?
Yeah.
The case against the guy they think might have done it seems to be falling apart.
Well, yes, because they relied on the information given to them by someone called Helga Bushing, who's also a sort of criminal and was involved with this guy, Christian Bruckner, who they suspect may have been involved in it. But now he's sort of backing off from what he's been saying, and he's refusing to cooperate with the investigators. And if he does that, and Christian Bruckner's still not cracking, then the whole thing could implode, which people are now saying is such a huge blow, because I think the Germans were convinced that he was involved somehow. And, you know, it's disappointing for Maddie's parents too.
It's just, I have to say, I don't sound like a blooming know-it-all with it all. It never quite sat with me, I have to say, Nigel. It just all seemed a bit too convenient. And like, where was the actual evidence?
There wasn't any, was
Well,
there?
that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem. So this guy was the key witness who knew Christian Bruckner. But the problem was he also gave an interview to a German newspaper for which he was paid. Now, that kind of makes you feel that having done that, going into court would be a problem. In this country, that would be illegal. You wouldn't be allowed to interview a witness, and certainly not pay them before a court case. And of course, as you say, I mean, you sort of really feel for Kate and Jerry on the basis that their hopes get up and then they're dashed again, and it feels like this one is being dashed for the final time.
I know. What they were saying is these are the sorts of people you're dealing with. I mean, when you're relying on the testimony of someone like this, they can be very unreliable, people like this.
I mean, there's no suggestion as to why he's wobbling now on the
No, they didn't detail it in the piece. You know, they were just sort of talking about the character of the man, not a reliable person. But if there's been payment involved, then, you know, I mean, that can sort of point towards why he maybe said things. You know, this is the problem with policing, right? I mean, you can work for years in policing and you can have a strong suspicion about someone. But you have to prove it. You've got to have evidence. You can't take it to court without that.
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask you about this? Obviously, our crime survey this morning, looking at the 62% of people think crime's on the rise in the UK, 65% talking about shoplifting should have zero tolerance because that is dramatically on the rise. Graham's been in touch, I think it's Graham, saying, in my local shop, staff are told not to intervene. So they've gone by the time the police arrive. Years ago, they were held in the shop until police got there, but that doesn't happen anymore. Now, you were saying, Nigel, that when you saw something happen in your local supermarket, it's difficult to say you've got to grab hold of someone and lock them in a room until the police arrive. But how else do you do it? If that's not happening now, how do you deal with it?
But it can go badly wrong. I mean, you look at that video from the shop in Peckham where things went... We still don't know what happened, so I don't want to say too much.
But that sounds like looting, because Richard been in touch said shoplifting is looting. Well, it was in that case.
I know, but the thing is, you take the law into your own hands, then things escalate, and then what happens? You know, and this is the danger of it, allowing people to take the law into their own hands. But, of course, they do because they want to solve the problem.
We've had Rose get in touch. She says, my stepdaughter works in a big shop selling mobiles and laptops in Ireland. She said the shop doesn't hire private security in their shops because the percentage cost of product loss a year doesn't justify the cost of hiring a security firm. The safety of their staff should come first. So they, I mean, it's...
But that might be changing. That's the thing, if the percentage loss is going up that much.
Things like body cams worn by shop assistants would help, because at least then you'd have some evidence. You'd actually be able to identify the people involved, and the police could then follow it up.
Utterly demoralising, though. Who would want to start a shop in these circumstances? Such a disincentive.
I'll tell you what is an interesting view. I don't agree with it. Jack has been in touch. Hi, Jack. But you can see the sense in what he's saying. He says the answer is very simple. There is zero shoplifting in Saudi Arabia, as you could potentially lose a hand for doing that.
Oh, yes,
now, I don't agree with that sort of law. I really, really don't. But perhaps we do need some tougher moves. I'm not saying do anything as brutal as that.
Good Lord, no.
But you can see why people don't do it in a place like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I mean, obviously, any punishment's got to be proportionate to the crime within our legal system. So you're absolutely right that we wouldn't be considering something like that. But equally, it's a bit difficult to know quite what sort of custodial sentences you can give shoplifters if you compare that with other crimes.
Yes.
Well, does it have to be custodial? I know people like to send people to prison, but it doesn't have to be custodial,
No, it could be community service or something like that.
But
Can you see a
substantial.
shoplifter doing community service?
Well, why? If they're made... Well, it's either that or go to prison.
Yeah, they would actually be forced to go and do it. So if they're going to make some sort of reparations for what they've done, that would be helpful.
But 6 months of that might be a disincentive.
Well, the broken windows policy in New York under Rudy Giuliani, apparently that did work. I mean, you have heavy punishment for perceived minor crimes, and then it doesn't escalate and people don't feel as emboldened. So, I mean, you can try it.
Yeah. Well, it's worth a shot. Keep your thoughts coming through on that one.
Philip says, hi, Philip. My old hometown, Epsom, used to have its own police station, now closed. Next town, Ashted, closed. Next town, Leatherhead, closed. The nearest Surrey police station is Dorking, a 20-minute drive at speed. Will shoplifters wait around to be arrested? I think not.
No. Same in Cumbria, actually. I mean, it's like if there's any calls out in Cumbria, it's blooming miles away. It takes forever. So I think that's a very good point. Look, stay with us, you two, because